Well, keeping things going apace.
Yes. Yeah. I've been meaning to watch this documentary for a while, given that I'm a big Star Trek fan, and Deep Space Nine was one of my favorite shows. Um, what we left behind is basically a retrospective look back at the show. I think they probably did it for the this would have been, I think, it would have been the 25th anniversary.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Because they actually just had the 30th was last year,
Hmm.
yeah. The documentary basically features, they brought back, I want to say, like the majority of the cast to interview. They even briefly talked to Avery Brooks, which is pretty amazing because he usually doesn't do interviews.
Which one is Avery Brooks again?
Cisco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, he's a interesting guy. It's just to
I mean,
try to put it.
he was a exploitation star in the '70s, right?
I don't know. I know he was on another TV show before DS9. Can't remember what it was. They mentioned it in the documentary, but I can't remember what it was called. But yeah, but yeah. So it was the the whole documentary was basically directed and hosted by Ira Stephen Bear, who's the guy you see on the screen on the poster. He was the showrunner for DS9. And they basically just talked about like the making of it and all the different aspects of the that went into the show, and his thoughts on what they were able to accomplish with it. Um, and one of the One of the cool things about it too was that Ira and the other four main writers on the show, one of whom was Ronald D. Moore, who most people will know him for doing the Battlestar Galactica revival and God, what was that show? The time travel show that he was doing. Um, but the five of them got into the writers' room, into like a writers' room, and they did a plot. They plotted out the story for a hypothetical season 8, episode 1 for Deep Space Nine. And it was just kind of interesting watching the five of them together, just kind of hashing out this story. And what was kind of funny too is they brought in a new character, a Bajoran character, and they just kind of throw out a name like out of thin air. And I wonder how many times they did that with other characters on the show. Like, okay, well, we're gonna have this character. We'll call him whatever.
Quick, throw 3 darts at the vowel board
Yeah,
or
yeah,
at the phoneme board.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, to correct myself, I was going very opposite direction of what I remembered about Avery Brooks's career. He was more the Shakespeare and other high-end stuff direction.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if you ever watch Deep Space Nine, you'll see that with his acting performances. Um, but one of the other things I thought was interesting was, if you ever watch the show, they would occasionally do like a Ferengi centric episode.
Hmm.
So they'd have like Quark and his brother
Right.
Rom and a few of the other Ferengi characters. I know, like, there are probably some people out there that didn't like those episodes because they were kind of goofy. They could be kind of goofy and comical,
Yeah,
but
like that really weird Prophet and Old Lace one where
yeah,
Quark had to pretend to be a woman.
yeah. They mentioned that episode in the on there because they were talking about like the social issues that DS9 touched on during its run, and one of it was sexual identity, and they brought that episode up.
That's not a good example of exploring that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Uh, well, but whenever they would do one of those Ferengi episodes, they would always go to Armin Shimmerman, who played Quark. They would all go to his house to rehearse the episode. Um, and then but yeah, to go back to like the social episode issues part of the show, like if you watch Battlestar Galactica, you see a lot of the same themes that were played out in both shows, particularly with like religion and
Mhm.
war and other heavier topics. Um, but there was one episode. It was actually a two-part episode. It was called Past Tense.
Mhm.
And if you go and you watch that episode, it takes place in 2024, and not too far off from where we are now.
Oh,
Because it was about poor and homeless and disadvantaged people living in sanctuary districts. And I'm like, okay, We're we're pretty close to that now. And they
yeah.
also had like the internets and stuff.
I remember Razor Fist a while back saying that Blade Runner wasn't an instruction manual.
Yeah,
Like it does kind of look the most like the present.
yeah, it does. Yeah. But what I liked about that episode though was when they were back in time, this like civil rights leader uh, gets killed by their own by their own their actions caused the civil rights leader to get killed, and
Oh,
so Cisco has to take the identity of the civil rights leader. So that's the part of that the aspect of that two-parter I thought was really good. Um, but um, but the other part was like sexual identity, which Ira Stephen Bear was like, "Oh, we didn't do enough." Like, okay, because um,
God forbid you
with
just have a show about it, adventures in space.
I know, yeah. As if the other topics that they covered weren't enough. But overall, it's a really good documentary. And you get to hear from a lot of the actors that were in the show, not just the main cast, but also like the reoccurring actors. Um, and uh, and they touched on like stuff that I noticed like watching the show, like oh god, what Mark Alimo, who played Gul Dukat, who was like
Mhm.
the primary villain in the show. Like he talked about how like, oh yeah, he was madly in love with Major Kira. And if you watch the show, like, oh yeah, he definitely had a thing for her, but of course she found him just completely, you know repulsive.
It's like a fascist leader uh, or- like, falling in love with one of the people he's oppressing. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean it's on Amazon Prime, although it's on that freebie version of it, so it'll have ads. But
ah,
yeah, but it's overall really good. The only thing they didn't touch on in there, and I was really mad about, they didn't mention Morn. Uh, Morn was the barfly, the gray alien guy, big, bald head, and he never talked. They named him after Norm from Cheers. That
okay.
was kind of where that was where the character kind of came from. They never talked about him because the shtick of it was that he never says anything. Like, you never hear him talk, but apparently he's just like a real chatterbox. So it's like you couldn't take like 2 minutes to talk about Morin. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, yeah. If you like Star Trek, if you like DS9, yeah, give this a watch.